President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged G20 leaders to not lose sight of the bigger picture. Speaking at the Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting, the head of state indicated that a fair, transparent and inclusive rules-based international order is an essential requirement for economic stability and for sustained growth. The comments come as the absence of the United States ministers from the G20 meetings this week and last continues to raise concerns about the commitment of some global leaders to come to the table and help resolve global challenges.
Multilateral cooperation is our only hope of overcoming unprecedented challenges, including slow and uneven growth, rising debt burdens and levels, persistent poverty in many parts of the world, and inequality, and the existential threat of climate change.
The IMF, meanwhile, has urged G20 leaders to prioritize tax collection ahead of raising taxes, saying emerging economies must first strengthen their capacity to collect tax revenues and improve spending efficiencies. MD Kristalina Georgieva says emerging economies continue to struggle with enhancing collections, with lower collection levels than those of their more developed counterparts. She added that inefficiencies in spending what was collected also hampered public support for existing taxes. And her sentiment around effectively mobilizing those existing resources was echoed by the likes of Yasser Sobi, the Vice Minister of Finance for Egypt.
Policies must be carefully designed to mobilize revenue while limiting inflationary pressures and fostering growth, which is very important for sustainability. We believe that widening the tax base and leveraging digitalization are essential, while measures that take into account challenges faced by businesses are key to building trust and confidence in the tax system.
Headline consumer inflation rose to 3.2% year-on-year in January. That's from 3% the previous month. Despite the acceleration, the reading is still well below the 4.5% target that the Reserve Bank aims for. The print is the first to feature updated weights and changes to the goods and services in South Africa's consumer inflation basket. The statistics agency included items like rosé, wine, air fryers, and streaming services to reflect changes in spending habits. And Anheuser-Busch InBev has reported forecast beating fourth quarter profits. That's thanks to cost management, which drove margin expansion, and high sales of pricier labels like Corona, which pushed revenues to an all-time high. The one dark cloud for the brewer was a slowdown in the Chinese beer market, which dragged volumes lower. The brewer makes around a fifth of its sales in the region. Looking ahead, AB InBev has forecast further organic operating profit growth of between 4 and 8% in 2025. Bid Corp has reported a 6% rise in half-year earnings. This was supported by a 3.6% increase in revenue thanks to better festive season trading. The food services company has declared an interim dividend of R5.60 per share. That reflects growth of 6.7%. AECI is playing the long game. The diversified chemical solutions company is in the midst of executing a new strategy. But in order to achieve that goal, it's had to make several concessions, including strategic divestments, transformative investments, and one-off impairments. And this has impacted the group's balance sheet. For the full year, headline earnings per share fell 37%. AECI is hoping its new strategy allows it to double the profitability of its core businesses by 2026 and secure a global market position of third in mining by 2013. Sibanye-Stillwater will not go ahead with plans to invest in the Rhyolite Ridge lithium project in the U.S. This follows a plunge in the price of the rare metal. Lithium is used to make batteries which power electric vehicles, but the price has plunged more than 80% since its peak in November 2022 after a supply glut. Momentum expects its profit for the 6 months ended December to rise by as much as 55%. That's due to the strong performance of its insurance and guard risk business in the period. The market welcomed the news, sending the group's shares more than 10% higher after the trading update was released. Full financial details will be published on the 20th of March. In international news, the Ukraine and US have reached a consensus of a draft minerals deal as President Trump is looking for different ways to end the war with Russia. Here's more detail in this report.
The U.S. and Ukraine have agreed on the terms of a draft minerals deal central to Kyiv's push to win Washington's support as President Donald Trump seeks to rapidly end the war with Russia. That's according to two sources who spoke with Reuters. Trump indicated Tuesday he would meet with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky later this week to finalize the agreement, which could open up the country's vast mineral wealth to the U.S.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal.
Trump also said there needs to be some form of peacekeeping troops in Ukraine if an agreement to end the conflict is struck. Moscow has refused to accept any deployment of NATO troops. Trump's rush to impose an end to Russia's war in Ukraine has stoked fears of far-reaching U.S. concessions to Russian President Vladimir Putin that could undermine security in Ukraine and Europe and alter the geopolitical landscape.
And Apple shareholders voted to retain the tech giant's diversity, equity and inclusion policies when former management, which had opposed efforts by a conservative group to scrap the program. Let's take a look.
Apple shareholders have opted to keep the firm's diversity, equity and inclusion policies. Long a bugbear for conservatives, such programs have now been targeted by Donald Trump's new administration.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life.
Other major tech firms, including Meta and Alphabet, dropped DEI measures before or after Trump returned to the White House. A motion to do likewise was submitted to Apple's annual shareholder meeting by the National Center for Public Policy Research, a group that describes itself as a free market think tank. Proponents of ending DEI said the iPhone maker would face more discrimination lawsuits if it persisted with such programs. Apple responded that it had legal safeguards in place and the proposal would inappropriately restrict management. Company chief executive Tim Cook said Apple's strength came from hiring the best people from all backgrounds. But he said Apple's policies might have to evolve amid the changing legal landscape. On Monday, the firm vowed to invest $500 billion in the US over 4 years, drawing praise from Trump. Last month, the same think tank submitted a similar proposal to retail giant Costco. That, too, was soundly defeated in a vote by shareholders.